1, 2. When I heard my mother say these words, I would never let her finish. And you know what number's next. You would not believe how fast I became the perfect little angel. As I've grown older, I've noticed that our government sometimes too has to act like a disciplining mother. My mother allows me to do certain things independently, but regulates my activity on other things, such as the time I spend away from home and my involvement in after-school activities. This is the same way the government rules over each state, except concerning more important issues. The government's grasp wasn't always as firm as it is today. Before the Constitution was created, our nation followed the Articles of Confederation. This document gave much more power to individual states than it gave to the central federal government. In early America, it seemed for a time the balance between state and federal government was achieved through the Bill of Rights and specifically the 10th Amendment, which states, "The power not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people." This amendment was ratified as part of the Bill of Rights in 1791. This amendment could mean many different things depending on the interpretation. So, let's break down what it meant to the framers of our Constitution and what it means to lawmakers today. For the framers, this was a way to keep the federal government in check. It was a way to assure that states attained and retained their individual sovereignties. The framers saw America as a loose confederation of states, rather than one nation with one powerful government. In layman's terms, the 10th Amendment gives states permission to do things outside of the federal government's reach, as long as what they're doing is not explicitly against the law. It also protects states' rights. As our nation grew in age, the 10th Amendment became less and less important to lawmakers. This is due to the belief in the ease of having everything run by one national government in Washington instead of 50 individual state governments scattered throughout our nation. Many decisions that are made today in Washington would have been made on a state-by-state level before the Civil War. America's attitudes began to change. They believed less in state rights and more in an overall centralized government. This is prevalent in such things as Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal, which was an economic program that lasted from 1933 to 1937. It was also prevalent in the many court cases pertaining to states' rights, such as Pritz versus the United States, which took place in 1997. This court case challenged the Brady Act, which required purchasers of firearms to undergo a series of background checks. This case made it all the way to the Supreme Court, which ruled 5-4 in favor of J. Pritz, who believed these background checks were unconstitutional due to the Constitution allowing firearm ownership. A modern-day example of what legislation passes when the original intent of the 10th Amendment is not kept in mind would be Common Core curriculum. Many argue that if our nation was to follow and adhere to the 10th Amendment's original intent, each state would be able to decide its own curriculum versus having to follow the strict and nationwide rules of Common Core. Even to this day, this is a heated controversy amongst today's educators and lawmakers. Mothers never quit raising their children. They're always there for them. This is the same way the federal government treats each state, as its child and protects them. The questions that need answered now are, does our government still function using the 10th Amendment to its original intent? You could even ask, is our government still a good parent to its states?